All right. Hello, LinkedIn and YouTube. Thank you so much for joining us. We are live today with two special guests from Tellius. We've got Ajay Khanna and Alvin Wong. We're actually going to talk about a really cool topic on the convergence of artificial intelligence and business intelligence. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring both of them onto our virtual stage here. Hello, Ajay. Hello, Alvin.
Hey, Kate, how are you doing this morning?
I am doing fantastic. It's no longer morning. It's 12:01.
Yeah, we just switched it there. So it's no longer morning. We finally.
Morning. So I'm super excited about this session that we have here today. And for those joining us, maybe if you can both provide an introduction, tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
So let me start. So hello, everyone. My name is Ajay Khanna. I'm CEO and founder at Tellius. I'm really excited to be here this afternoon, not this morning, and talk about how can we bring data insights in hands of business teams and the analyst, and we do that. How can we use AI to accelerate business intelligence and decision making? So I'm really passionate about this topic, and excited to be here.
Awesome.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Kate. Thanks for having us. My name is Alvin Wong, marketing here at Tellius. Look forward to having lively discussion with everyone out there. I'm sure you're going to tell everyone that we'll be taking questions live and interacting with whoever would like to talk about this topic of BI and AI.
Yes, absolutely. And everyone, as you're joining us, let us know where you're tuning in from, and definitely ask as many questions as you want. Ajay and Alvin will be here until we're done with all the questions. But before we get into questions from the live audience, maybe we can get started with tell us a little bit about Tellius. That's not an easy thing to say. Tell us about Tellius. Yeah.
Tell us about Tellius. So let me give a quick introduction and background on kind of what we are focusing on in Tellius. So Tellius, we are on a mission to enable everyone in the organization with a better data-driven decision making and make everyone an analyst in the organization. We strongly believe that organizations and the users in the organization should be able to answer not only what happened in your business, but why things are changing and how you can improve business outcomes. And so we build a platform to solve this problem and put these insights in the hand of business teams.
Okay, awesome. And how long has this company been a company?
So we started in late 2015. So we have been around 5 years or so. So we built about three years or so, building a very strong foundation. So we wanted to build a product foundation, and we use machine learning and AI kind of at the core of enabling this data-driven decision making. So we did that for about 3 years, building this strong foundation, and then we went to market about 2.5 years ago or so. And then we're working with companies across different industries, from CPG to pharmaceutical, healthcare, financial, but pretty much fundamentally the same problem. Organizations are sitting on this massive amount of data. They spend millions of dollars putting this data in the cloud, and no matter if it is AWS or Azure or GCP, but now we gotta take that data and derive insights, and more importantly, have the business teams and analysts do it in a more self-service manner, rather than relying on these data experts or so.
Yeah, absolutely. I think relying on data experts just ends up being a little bit more time consuming, especially for a large organization where you have one question and then you have to go through like 10, 15 people to get to the right answer. So I can definitely see a need for this space. And you mentioned a couple of industries. So I had a question. I know the problem is very much similar across all of these industries. Well, they're sitting on data.
Yeah.
They need to answer their questions. Are there, 2 or 3 industries that you think have not the highest need, but kind of the easiest to fix problem in this space?
Yeah, so I think that there have been a few different industries that we found the most interest and success in. So one area that Ajay had mentioned was pharmaceutical and life sciences, right? That's an industry. Not only is it heavily regulated, but it is an industry that is looking to utilize data more and more so, especially when it comes to thinking about how to improve their commercial effectiveness, how to bring drugs to market, figuring out what drugs to bring to market, and also how best to bring internal operational efficiencies into areas such as payer analytics and rebate teams as well. So that's one area. Another area would be consumer goods companies. Very very similar, right? They're looking at how to enable business teams, right, business users to get faster answers from their data about understanding customer behavior and market share. And they're oftentimes faced with a very long, difficult, arduous, complex process to get those answers. And there's definitely a need in those types of areas. And then there's other areas such as high tech and financial, right? Looking at trying to figure out how to solve problems such as that are perhaps deemed to be more complex or more analytical in nature, such as churn or customer behavior type of analysis. And they're struggling with also a complex process to bring their skilled resources and how to bring a more effective workflow in order to speed insights to the business in an effective manner.
Awesome, Alvin. It sounds like you're solving problems everywhere because you're like this. Oh, and this. Oh, yeah, and that, and then one more thing.
So, yeah. You gave me 3, and I gave you 4, but we could probably change.
That's awesome. So today we're talking about the convergence of AI and BI, and I just wanted to start on that topic and talk about why do you think we need to combine those two, right? What's wrong with keeping them separate?
No, that's a great question. Maybe I'll take a step back and talk about some of the main challenges we are seeing, in the industry, in the market. I see there's kind of 4 main challenges. The first is, I think, the user experience expectations. So when we look at our current BI stack, I think we see there has not been any major disruption in that in the last 20 years. It used to be dashboards on desktop, then became dashboards on a client server, then became dashboards on cloud, right? But it's still dashboards, and that's not how we consume information in a day-to-day basis. So if you have to book a flight from DC to LA, you go on some kind of easy consumer interface using some kind of search bar, and then be able to type a question or make that booking, buy a pair of shoes. So you can do all that pretty easily, but that's not happening in the business world. I think that's one challenge. The other challenge we see is that when we look at all this data being accumulated, we see there's a huge gap, and that gap is widening between the data and insights. I think that gap is widening. And the reason is that while we're collecting a lot of data, the approaches we are using to analyze data are very manual, outdated, and they're just not scalable. You can't do that and look through millions of combinations in the data to find those hidden insights, relevant insights to drive better business outcomes. The third challenge we see is that there's a lot of hype about machine learning AI. I think it's hard to avoid that word, no matter what blog you look at, article you look at, what talk show, even our talk, we talk about AI. But the challenge we see is that's still not accessible to the masses. The majority of the business teams who could actually benefit from all the power of AI, it's just not accessible to them. And then the last piece we see is that most of the current BI tools out there, they were built 10 to 12 years ago. I mean, they were pretty awesome for going from an IT-led era to a little bit of a self-service era with using dashboards and visualization, and gave a lot of self-service capabilities. But at the same time, that stack was still very outdated as we look now. That in regards to the the amount of data that can process, you can't really take that terabytes of data which you're putting on this amazing servers, that you can't bring all the data into those BI tools and be able to analyze that. So what that creates a challenge is that you could be collecting petabytes of data, but if you're not analyzing it, all of that is actually going to waste. So looking at all these challenges, I think when we look at from machine learning AI technique perspective, that you can combine what machines do really good, which is churn a lot of data, and then you have the business intelligence side where the domain experts who understand, what does churn look like, or what does market share means. I mean, they have a really good understanding of the domain, understand the features. When you combine these two together, I think the magic happens, where now that all the analysis you are doing can be supercharged now with all the I will say you can combine the ease of use and that intelligence to improve that data-driven decision making, and able to analyze all the data you're collecting rather than doing it in a very manual approach.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned making things accessible to the masses. And I just wanted to maybe define, what do you think of when you're saying accessible to the masses? Is it anyone at a company at any level of the organization that would be able to use a tool like Tellius to get insights?
Yeah, I mean, when we look at our future vision, and I think I give this example that when we're looking at a flight booking example, I think when I look back 25 years ago and looking at a flight booking experience for individuals who are born in the last 25, 30 years, they can't imagine a world where you would not have Google Flights or Travelocity or Expedia. So at that point, normal people just could not book the flight online. And I think we see an exact same scenario for business intelligence, and that just is insane. Like, you have so much data, and you can't have a head of marketing, a head of supply chain not being able to see how many orders were shipped and how many are. So our vision is, and it's not going to happen overnight. I think it's going to be a progression. It's going to be a journey. And all these techniques, natural language, machine learning, are going to help us go to that next level. And also, some of the pandemic has also accelerated some of that push there, because now you can just walk to the next cubicle and tap on your data analyst shoulder and say, get me this report. That isn't there. So you need that self-service access. So we believe, and that's what our mission statement is, that we want to make everyone in the organization a data analyst. What that means is not that we want them to do complex SQL stuff. What we mean is that you can actually ask questions, get answers from your data in a more self-service manner.
Yeah, absolutely. Just looking at comments, we got Divyang saying, great illuminating session, and thank you for sharing your knowledge. And I see Jessica here has shared the site for Tellius. If you guys are watching and want to check this out, they do have a free trial that we'll actually show a demo later in the session as well. So definitely stay tuned. But yes, I wanted to ask a question, because you mentioned that this is not going to happen overnight, right? So what would that look like? Let's say I'm a company and this sounds really interesting, and I want my business users to stop tapping data analysts on the shoulder every time they have a question, so the data analyst can do their job. How long do you think it takes for a company to go from saying this is interesting to actually being able to go ahead and ask questions from their data?
That's a great question. I think it depends on, first of all, I think we are very early stages of this journey. I think people are still trying to get used to what does natural language way of asking questions look like or feel like. I think one of the main question, objection, concern we hear when we go and talk to different customers is that, how do we enable our teams to make that shift? I think the enablement and cultural piece, I think, is a bigger barrier here. I think we got the technology, and then you always need a cultural shift, and how are we gonna get that happening? So what we feel is it depends on where you are in your analytics journey in the organization. So I would say that if you are still in an early stage, and that's how we look at who are the right customers for this kind of technology, is the organizations or the business teams who have actually already gone through some kind of business intelligence journey, meaning they got some Tableau, Power BI, Click, they gone through the dashboarding journey. They reach a stage where we're like, oh, okay, we can't scale anymore. These dashboards are, we have 25 dashboards, and we have heard in terms like someone has 800 dashboards, and it's like, okay, time out. Like, we gotta figure out, what do we do here? I think that's where the acceleration is faster, because they see the need, right? So I think now, of course, if you're talking to an organization who is still trying to get their data into a dashboard, for them, it is still a few years out. So I think we normally, the approach we take is just assess where you are in the analytics journey. And then if you are at that point, I think then you can actually make that happen, in a matter of maybe 6 to 9 months, right? You roll out this, then you slowly enable different team members, and then they start asking those questions or so. So I think that's kind of how we see that.
Okay, yeah. Obviously, it was going to vary, so that makes sense based on the organization. And you mentioned 800 dashboards. That's a nightmare of mine, I'll be honest. Especially dashboards across, let's say, Tableau, Power BI, Click, and whatever other BI tools out there. How would Tellius fix that, right? How do we address the need where 5 different departments are creating a very similar dashboard, and they're maintaining that dashboard, they're refreshing that data, and then some people are just not even using the dashboard who this was built for? How would you guys address that?
And Alvin, you want to take this?
Yeah. So I think it really, so again, it depends on the organization and the types of challenges that they're facing. And a part of it is just kind of thinking about a different approach, right? So if an organization is just married to dashboards, right, really take a hard look at how people are actually consuming them, right? Are they for operational reporting? Are you monitoring KPIs? And then think to yourself, okay, well, what happens when you need additional analysis, right? What happens when you have a follow-up question to something you see? What is that process that happens? Has it ever occurred to you that there's something that you should know, but you don't because you didn't ask the question, right? Because there's a lot of insights also within your data that you don't know about, but is it fair to say, okay, the business needs to explicitly ask a question in order for an answer to be generated, in order for them to respond to something like that, right? Mm-hmm. So you kind of have to dig deeper, dig a little deeper into how people are actually consuming the information, understanding the types of informational needs that they have. And I think, from there, it will surface then what are the pieces of decision intelligence or AI-driven analytics that is going to be more important to you, right? I think Ajay has brought forth, I think we've both talked about different types of use cases where AI can improve the BI process. Is it, at the business user level, right? Is it at the analyst level, or maybe it's at the data science level? As well, right? So there's kind of these various kind of work streams and information streams that you have to look at and inspect and say, okay, where's my biggest boost, right? To the earlier question around, okay, how does someone get started? Well, oftentimes it kind of has to start with them kind of realizing, hey, there's something I want to improve. There's some difficulty in a particular area, and then you kind of take it forth from there to find the right change in technology or the change in process that's going to work for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I love especially the fact where you said the user would want to ask a deeper question, right? Something that they maybe didn't ask a data analyst to put on their dashboard, but now they need. So obviously what they do next is they tap on the data analyst's shoulder and say, hey, by the way, I also need this. So I know we'll see a demo later. And at this point, I'm just going to go back into the questions. We've got a question here from Carrie asking, are there different security protocols for different levels of the organization for data access?
Yeah, I can take this one. So no, I think that's a great question. So we have different security protocols built in. It depends on the user level. We can do it at row level, column level security there. So depending upon, and we have live examples where some of our organizations where they have, let's say, a few hundred users who are using Tellius. But what they will do is that they will have, let's say, 5 or 10 users who are more their power users. So they have access to look at the data, maybe create some new data models and stuff. Then the other users who are mostly utilizing that to ask questions using search. And then we also have some limited users who are generating insights, because the reason you're trying to limit that is because insights certainly take a lot more compute power. So if the organizations want to make sure that they are balancing the compute power they have with the access, so it's possible to do that. And then the other piece is we also have different levels in terms of row level access security, meaning that if you have certain one big table, which it is for northeast region, west region, east region, so you can actually set the row level security so that when an individual who is actually only supposed to be looking at the west region runs the insight, it actually only uses that subset of the data, even though that's part of the same table. So just different levels of security protocols to make sure you have the right access of data and the right access of features to the users in the organization.
Yeah, I mean, that makes so much sense because you don't want the person on the East region having to see what's on the West if their focus is strictly on the East. That's great. Is that something you would set up as part of the kind of process where people bring in the product and they can set up their own security protocols, or how does that process work?
Yeah, it's an admin level setting. So the admin level, so you can actually do it at the setup of the Tellius on the first time, or most likely what happens is mostly when people deploy it, they really don't have all that figured out. So down the road, they're like, oh, we're gonna use it this way. So the admin can actually go and just like any point and click interface, and you can enable, disable the appropriate settings for the end users.
Okay, great. We've got 2 comments here from Susan Walsh. She says, this is all great, but we need to make sure the data is clean first. And then she says it also helps for them to work with their data regularly to familiarize themselves with it. Any thoughts, reactions on the clean data comment?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So that's a great comment, right? I think data quality is definitely something that can improve insights, especially when someone thinks about automation and the power that someone may have to draw insights out of their data and how quickly that can happen. So definitely clean data is definitely very important. And we see that also with the organizations that we work with as well. And in response to that, one thing that I think sets Tellius apart is our ability to prepare, transform, and clean data within our platform as well, right? So not only do we think about the user experience, right, as a consumer, right, whether that's a business user or a data analyst, but also try to take care of the underlying plumbing that's necessary to ensure that you have clean, accurate data that comes into the system that people can then leverage for the wide variety of use cases, right? So, right, when we talk about this convergence of BI and AI, there are many applications of this, from standard BI query, from automated analysis, and then ML modeling. But really, at the core of that, you need clean data, and so we supply that capability and effectively bring that and make that data available across the various use cases that we can serve.
Okay, yeah, that's great. That was one of the questions I had. So if I had data sitting, let's say, in 10 different data sources, databases, we can bring all that together in Tellius and clean and prep it, I guess. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. Now, of course, that's not the only way, right? So, I think organizations will have different strategies in terms of how they're going to bring in, consolidate, join data across multiple sources.
Yep.
In those cases where, let's say, you don't have a data warehouse or some centralized repository, Tellius does in fact have connectors to a wide variety of end databases, analytic data stores, files, applications, and we have the ability then to bring in that data into our system, transform it, join it, do the operations necessary in order to then analyze that data.
Mm-hmm. Okay, got it. That's great. Okay, more questions here. So Wilder's asking, can AI also be applied to help solve issues at the business process level? We asked for clarification because I was.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess I'm trying to figure out at the business process level. There are certainly many different business processes that we can inform, right, via the insights that are generated in our system. Although I don't quite think that's necessarily what the question is, perhaps. So yeah, love to get clarification on that.
Clarification. Yeah, thank you. All right, let's go to this next one from Misag. Okay, so the human mind is too curious for any dashboard to stay relevant. Down the road, search-based BI is the way to go. Make everyone a data analyst.
I love that. I love that. I think it's a comment. I love that comment, Misag. Yeah, I think human mind is really curious, because no matter how many dashboards you create, and it is, I think these 800 dashboards are a result of human mind curiosity, because you ask one question, then you have another question, and you keep asking those questions, and before you know, you have 800 dashboards. And I still remember, I think, sitting in a meeting with head of analytics of a big financial bank, and he was saying is that I know the question I have is in one of the dashboards, I just don't know which one. And I think he was coming in saying, could you create a search interface to search within the dashboards? I said, no, that's not the right way to go. You just have a search bar, you connect to the data and get answers. You don't need to start searching within the dashboards. And again, and don't take me wrong, I mean, these dashboards are still needed, that you need some of those which you come in the morning and then you look at your 10 KPIs and all that stuff. I think, and that's continue to be there. I don't foresee that need going away. So I think search and natural language processing is gonna augmentation that. So you wanna have dashboards, you're gonna just the key will be that you don't need 800 of them. Hopefully you will still need your 3, 4, 5 main dashboards. You come in the morning, have your coffee or tea, whatever you have, and then you look at your stuff. But then during the day, you have more curious questions, and then you go to kind of search-based interface.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think these business intelligence platforms make it so easy for us to create anything we're curious about. It's not difficult to create the 800 dashboards because it's literally a couple of clicks. But then we get into that dashboard creep or whatever it's called, where there's just so many of them. And I actually spoke to another company that provides a search across all your dashboards. But if you can take that whole middle layer out and go directly to search your data, that just seems like a smarter way to go. Okay, going back to comments, there's a question here from Romeo asking, do you guys have a free trial?
Oh yeah, so absolutely we have a free trial. And our free trial, I would say, is different than what you would find perhaps with some other tools. So lots of times people think of the free trial as, hey, I love the desktop version, right? And that's not the type of trial that we offer, right? So our tool isn't necessarily just a desktop visualization tool, right? Our tool is actually built completely from the ground up to be a distributed, in-memory capable system that's cloud native, and it's built for the cloud, and that can scale to infinite data. And so when I say, okay, I'm selling you on all this stuff, what I really mean to say is, yes, you can start a free trial, but the amazing thing is that you can actually start a free trial on our site, get started in minutes, and you're on the platform that can scale at that point, right? Like you're on the platform that can scale number of users, infinite amount of data. And we've built our platform to be elastically scalable in that way to bring resources to bear depending on the types of workloads that are being run, the processing power that's being needed. So it's a little different than what you're going to find because we have from the get-go thought about how we can build a system that is really built for the modern world, right? Like you use any internet service, you don't think about as a consumer, you don't think about capacity, you don't think about number of users, right? So in that way, we offer this capability to basically have a zero maintenance type of experience from a management standpoint, but still be able to offer the level and the speed of insights that you would desire.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, sometimes you download a version of some kind of tool that's a trial version, and then the limited capabilities are there. Then you have to download an upgraded version, and then you kind of have to start from scratch. So what you're saying is the version that's in the free trial is the version you're going to get that you can scale with.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Awesome. And people can go to Tellius.com, or is there another specific link that they need to use?
Yeah, just go to Tellius.com. There's a link to the free trial there. If you're not quite ready and you want to see more, that's fine. You can request a demo, and we will have a solutions architect reach out to you, talk about some of your requirements, really understand what you're looking for, understand the personas and the types of issues that you're facing, and then give you a personalized demonstration of the product that is going to be, really catered to what you're looking for.
Or stay tuned, you'll get a demo right now. Well, in a few minutes, you'll get a demo as well. Thank you for that. Ravit likes your t-shirts, so he likes your matching matching Tellius t-shirts.
No, that's great to hear. I think I was joking with someone. I think that I think I see a lot more positive comments on our t-shirts as compared to our tools. So we gotta fix that there. somehow create that balance, or actually have maybe a sub part of our company, just focusing on the t-shirts and the logos or so. But no, thanks. I appreciate that, Ravit.
Awesome. So Walter is clarifying his question. So by business process, you meant transactions in ERP generated data. Data is extracted in analytical systems. BI plus AI inform the business process. So Alvin, you did answer his question. However, it was a bit short. Not sure if you want to elaborate on the question, or if you want me to scroll back to the original question, if that's helpful.
No, I think that provides some good clarification for us. Absolutely. For us, when you look at our system, we work with data coming from different places, right? So they could be transactional data. It could be simply just customer attributes, right? It could be data that that is about a business process as well, right? And so in terms of the business process, what the types of insights that we can glean from that would be look for bottlenecks in the process, try to understand the types of transactions or the records that that either take the longest, for example, or the most troublesome for your team. So those are the things that we can certainly help you analyze. But yeah, what we deal with at the end of the day is a lot of structured data. So really, as long as the data is structured, that's something that we can handle.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for that. Okay, I'm not even sure which question. There's so many good ones coming in. So going back to Ravid, he has another question here, aside from the t-shirts. Where do you see Tellius in the next 5 years? So this is actually a question I had prepared for you as well. Just give your vision on what are you expecting over the next 3 to 5 years.
No, that's a great question. So the way we look at that is, as this BI and AI space is converging, we call this area as decision intelligence. So the decision intelligence is the area where you can use this applied machine learning AI concepts to business intelligence to accelerate data-driven decision making, and we see Tellius playing a major role and a leader in that category of decision intelligence. So that decision intelligence category is one which helps users to focus on not only what happened, but why things are changing and how you can improve outcomes. So there's a huge unaddressed market there, with BI sitting on one side of the spectrum, and then you have the data science tools on the other side of the spectrum. So, some great BI tools. I see a question like difference between Tellius and Power BI there. Yeah. So you see this on one side of the spectrum, and then you see the data science tool, and then you see this huge unaddressed market of these business teams, analysts who want to take the discovery of insights to the next level, accelerate that process, compress the analytic cycle. So we see that category being enabled by combining BI with AI, and we call that category as decision intelligence. And we see Tellius as emerging as a category leader in that space. That's kind of where we see. I think that brings up to that other question with Tellius, with the other tools, Power BI and Tableau. I mean, those are some great, amazing tools. Tableau is the king of visualization. So they have done such a great job of enabling anyone to create those self-service visualization, and they are really good at what they do. And similarly, Power BI, great at providing those BI visualization reporting needs or so. And we see Tellius kind of augmenting or supplementing that category of tools out there. So I wouldn't say that we will compete with them. If someone has a need to create this different kind of visualization, they want these 85 kind of charts, I think the Power BI or Tableau would be a good fit for them. No, we do support visualization WISPads, we call it, and we do have our 50, 60 kind of charts there, but not to the level and the depth of Tableau and Power BI, and we don't intend to compete in that space. However, if your need is more ad hoc exploration, for the masses using natural language interface, generating insights automatically, and compressing that analysis cycle and understanding why things are changing, that's where you will use Tellius. So Tellius will be actually complementing, and actually in all of our customers, I wouldn't say majority, all of our customers, they have one of these tools already in there, and they are putting Tellius to support some of the other use cases.
Yeah, great. I was actually thinking one easy way to answer Praveen's question is through a demo to show what can Tellius do that maybe Power BI, Tableau, and other BI tools can't do.
Yep.
Should we pull that up, Ajay?
I think that's a great segue to the demo system, and here you are. So it's pretty flawless. So we got there. Perfect. So let me start with the interface and see how that works. And I will also a little bit touch on the data. I think I see a lot of questions around data, but I'll start with how you can ask questions from the data. Generate some of the insights, answer what happened, why things changed, and also do some kind of machine learning, predictive models. And then I'll come back and talk about how we bring data in and what you can do from a data cleaning and transformation capabilities perspective. So when you come in, the interface looks very, very similar to what you would see in some kind of search engine, where you have a search bar in the middle, and that's kind of the interface we're trying to create. It will certainly show you things which either you are interested in based on your usage, as well as some of the other team members may be asking for. So when you want to start a question, you bring it to a search bar and start asking questions. So let's say you want to look at, for example, that, okay, I want to look at just a question like revenue by state. Now the system knows that you ask for revenue by state. It actually figures out that it needs to present a map view, not a bar chart or a line chart view. So it does it in a more automated manner. However, you can absolutely change that and switch the chart to whatever you want. But you can actually start asking different questions here by state. You can say, I want to look at maybe by channel and let's say product. So you can actually say channel and product. The system will say, okay, this seems like a stacked bar chart because you want to show both channel and the product, and then it will create a stacked bar chart for you pretty quickly. You don't have to type some of these things like exactly right. So let's say even if you were to let's say revenue, and like even if you type something like a revenue which is not the right spelling, it's gonna try to find the closest match. And if it finds in multiple places, it could give you those options there. So you can start that ad hoc exploration. And I want to show that this data we are looking at in this view is actually not one table. So we are looking at the e-commerce data. And that e-commerce data is, you have an orders table, you have customer table, you have page views, you have product information, you have session information. So it's not one table we are looking at. That's I want to just make sure that it's clear that you can actually bring in multiple tables. And what we create something called a business view. In terminology, it will be a data model, but we call it a business view, which is a collection of tables. And they're, of course, joined by certain common keys. But the beauty is, once you do that, you don't need to kind of create multiple versions of these tables. These are still kind of the main table. You join them on the fly and do all the aggregations on the fly based on the question you're asking. And in this example, I haven't loaded a lot of data. This is just a demo example, but we have customers who are using this kind of interface to ask questions across tens of billions of records and be able to get those answer that. That's the beauty, that if you have 5 billion, 10 billion rows, there's no way you can bring it into one of these tools. So here you can actually do that analysis pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's really awesome. I had one question here from Adrian. It's just the question. It just says ETL ? So I'm guessing he wants to know what the ETL process looks like, or what are the capabilities. I know you mentioned that you build a data model, and I guess all of the data tables that you bring in have to somehow join on some kind of unique ID. So maybe talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, no, I'll jump on that. I was thinking that I will maybe wait for the data questions till the end, but I knew that I think the data questions will be probably the most hard question. So I think it makes sense to go to the data part. I know that's always a question, because like, okay, how are you going to bring this data in, how this works, and those are all valid questions. So what we're going to do is, so we can actually go and bring different data sources in, so you can connect to some of these data sources. Your traditional data systems like data warehouses like Oracle, SQL. You can connect to some of the cloud data warehouses like Snowflake. So you bring the data in, and once the data is in, you can actually start actually be able to look at what the data is and do some cleaning or transformation activity. So this is just some sample data I pulled up, which is actually a COVID-19 reports, which shows different states, regions. So you have that information. You can actually go and do some cleaning here itself. So what you could do is, let's say you have some information here, you can actually do some transformations, maybe rename columns. You can maybe do copy paste to replace certain things. You can change the data types. You can do different transformations using a point and click approach. However, we also have things like for some of the advanced tasks where you want to use a SQL. So you can actually bring in SQL and say, I can start creating a SQL statement and be able to create a SQL statement and apply that to the data. That's absolutely possible. You can store some of that in your library, so you can reuse some of those things. So that's SQL part, but then you can also do that same thing using Python. So some of the Python experts who will say, you know what, I want to do some using pandas or PySpark and be able to run some Python transformations. With maybe either you are comfortable with this language or some of these things are not possible in SQL. So you can absolutely do that also. But for even if you don't know this, no big deal. You can actually do a lot of that activity with a lot of this point and click approach. And we are building this thing, what we call as a pipeline, because normally when you're trying to clean something, you have multiple steps. You remove a column, you add a column, you create a new column, and then you can see the pipeline and then be able to come back here and change one of the step, because I'm sure whatever you do, a few days later, you'll realize, I don't know, I want to change this column type or so. So you could do that. So that's the step where you can go through. Then what we do is you can also bring, you can combine different tables into one place, which is what we have. We call it an e-commerce view, which is what I was showing. And here you can actually join different tables together. So you have location table, orders table, kind of join them together using some common key. And that's what we'll call as the e-commerce business view. So what I just went through was you can bring in data, you can do some transformations, you can combine things together. Now, I want to certainly say that that if you're using a cloud data warehouse like Snowflake or so, there's a good possibility that we can just push down those queries inside the data warehouse. So we don't really have to run all that transformation activities here, because maybe a lot of that work is already done. You've already invested time in there. So we have a technique, we call it live query. So that's where we just use a live query where we push down the query, let Snowflake or Redshift do the heavy work. So you have both the options available. So if you have invested there, you can utilize all the investment you made in Snowflake. If you have not made investments in this cloud data warehouses like Snowflake, and you're still using SQL, Oracle, you can bring it in inner memory, combine things together, and so a lot of different options available from that perspective.
Yeah, that's really powerful. Are you going back to the visualization side of things now? That's where
Yes.
I live. I love the visualization.
Yes. So what sorry, so you had a question?
No, keep going. I'll ask once you put the visual on, because it's about visualization.
So I just did another chart where it's like, okay, so now we are looking at revenue for we're comparing two different channels, email compared to social. We are doing it for quarterly, for South. So if you look at that, it's doing a lot of things. It has filters, it has quarterly aggregations. You're trying to compare two things. You have revenue. So you're doing this thing, and it's doing it on the fly. You actually start. That's where the next part kicks in, where you're like, okay, so I see a jump happening here. This is unusual. Like I don't see a 300% jump in my revenue in South. Like so, something is happening, and I want to investigate. And that's where the next part of analysis kicks in, where we can do from this search. That's actually something very, very unique to Tellius. I mean, that from search, you can do anything here. Like you can run insights, you can actually create machine learning models right from here, because now you are in a context of analyzing this particular revenue increase for these regions, and you want to do further investigation. I think to earlier point about curious mind, and you have a lot of questions now. So you want to understand why things are happening, and that's where the system can actually run this analysis, figure out why revenue changed, and be able to find those answers and say, okay, we can actually do this analysis where the revenue changed, and the Q1 was this, Q2, you see the change happening, figure out, create this narrative, a natural language narrative, and then be able to even find the contributors and reasons for what those biggest changes are. So what are the biggest changes from the contribution perspective? So you can see those changes there. Sorry, I lost the screen, so I'll bring it back here. So so you can see all this impact. So that's actually a lot of analysis done through a lot of variables to find the biggest contributors there. And again, you can continue this investigation further, because you may want to see, why did email or one of the channel is doing better than the other. You want to compare these two, and that's where we have different kind of insights. So this other insight is more of for us, the cohort comparison insights, where you're trying to compare what happened on revenue on one channel as compared to the other. And I'll give some examples of it. So it certainly applies to marketing, where you're looking at two channels and say why things change. We're working with a financial institution where they are looking at, because they are making different credit card offers. So you will have a 2% cashback credit card, or you have a 50,000 mile credit card. Now they issue those credit cards, a lot of people sign up, so they have to track that over the life of that credit card offer and say, who signed up and who is actually giving a much better return to that financial institution, which offer is actually at a much higher risk of higher loss ratios, because people aren't paying their things on. How do you figure that out, right? Because you have a lot of people signing up, how they what's their demographics, what's their account attributes look like. So this can actually do that analysis through all that channel, and that's what they really liked this insights feature, because they could see that we can click a button, run this analysis, it's going to show us all these attributes, maybe a region or an age group or certain income level is actually what's contributing to that difference in behavior of those two cohorts. It's not just like which cohort is better or the other, but why one cohort is better than the other or so. So I'll pause here. See, I don't know if there was any questions, comment.
Yes, absolutely. So first of all, I think this is very powerful. You have some really good feedback coming in via the comments. My question here is, let's say I'm using the tool and I get to these really great insights. Is there a way I can share this maybe with my manager, with the team? How would that work?
No, that's a great question. I think that's the next step, where you can actually, when you see these insights, you can do multiple things. You can share this. You can share these insights with different users in a different way, like view, edit mode or so. You can actually download this. You can download this information in some CSV, some format, and send it out to someone. You can continue this exploration where you can actually you can explore these segments further. You can look at the raw data. You can do a lot of that analysis there, where you can export this thing, you can share with people, you can continue this investigation further, and continue to slice and dice this data in different ways or shape. So you can do that. We also have some interface where you can get this information out as APIs for if you are trying to connect some of that output into a third-party applications. You can also use APIs to do that.
Okay, awesome. So Ravi knows that I like data visualization, and he said, look at Kate's excitement when you mentioned data viz. And my question here was, so let's say you build a bar chart or line chart or whatever the map view. Do you have flexibility to customize maybe the use of color or the way the visual actually looks?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So what happens is that once we have all these information in search, you can do the editing in search itself, or we can bring it into something we call it a Wizpad, which is
Mhm.
a is our version or our naming for dashboards. So when
Okay.
you look at that, you can actually do all the customization. So when you edit this, you can bring in all these views where you can look at the formatting. You can start doing let's say click on this, like, yeah, so you can say I want to change from bar to line chart. So any typical features you will see in a BI tool, you can do that here. There is you can change the color. There's
Okay.
formatting. Yeah, chart color, conditional formatting, number formatting, some labeling, and it's very typical features you will see. You can start editing them and customize to your branding, your
Mhm.
taste or preference, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, and visualization, is definitely continues to be very important. And the power of what Ajay was showing earlier with those insights, and they kind of look like prepared reports in a way. But what's happening there is that we're really trying to improve the analyst experience, right? So as an analyst, when you have a question and you're trying to figure out why something's happening, or you're trying to figure out, who are the best segment of customers to target for a particular campaign, right?
Mhm.
Oftentimes you go through a process of hypothesis, right? You generate a hypothesis. You're like, oh, maybe sales are down, by region, by
Yeah.
state, by zip. So you kind of go through this process where you're thinking through all the possible combinations. And if someone were to take an approach where they wanted to do multivariate analysis,
Yeah.
right, across even a data set of, let's say, 20 columns or so, you'd probably have to really analyze thousands of different charts and visualizations in order to come up with sort of maybe the 5 best answers to that question. And here with Tellius, via the automated capabilities, what we're doing is we're actually scanning all the data that's available in the system for us,
Yeah.
and making that automation such that you don't need to go through that manual analysis process of having to visualize all the different types of charts in order to find what you're looking for, right? And so ultimately, we're trying to improve the experience for the analyst, help them also get much faster answers, in addition to making those insights more accessible to business users.
Yeah, thanks for that, Alvin. There's actually a question here on the data analyst that I wanted to bring up from Kingsley. He says, Tellius is really powerful. With such a tool in the market, what's the use of even having a data analyst?
I'm going to answer. This is very interesting. I wouldn't. So this was some customer we were talking to a few weeks back, and what he was giving this example of an analyst in his team. His name is Anton, and what he was saying was that what I really want. I have this individual Anton. He's pretty awesome. He can do a lot of data analysis work. But the poor guy just can't take vacation. I mean, he's working really super hard, and how do I enable him to take some vacation, or to take some time off, and do the personal life and
The
work
balance, yeah.
balance there. Yeah, work balance. So I think that's what's going to achieve. I don't think we won't need data analysts. I think there's a lot of work data analysts will do. We're just making them productive and more efficient, and be able to handle a lot more requests than they can handle today. I think that's kind of how I see.
I think that's a great answer. Give data analysts some work-life balance. There you go.
Work-life balance thing.
Let's
Yeah.
hear from Samuel. So what questions have been the most challenging for Tellius to handle, or does that just come down to the quantity and quality of the data?
Do you want me to take that, Alvin, or?
Thanks for trying to lob that one over. I'm trying to think. I'm not sure if I have a good sort of response here for something like that. I guess what I'll add is that so on one hand, it can kind of depends on what where you're coming from, I suppose, right? So if you kind of think about this as so some of you out there might think to yourselves, oh, hey, there's this automation and there's this AI, and oh, there's probably there's like all these questions you can't possibly answer. There's you shouldn't be able to either analyze the data, or maybe can't sort of automatically answer these questions. And at the same time, I think Ajay in this demonstration has done a great job showing you some of the power. But of course, there's always going to be some points of the implementation that may be harder than others. So, for example, right, we talk about natural language search, and while we do give people a great starting point in order to translate either written text or spoken word into things that match in their data, that can often be a process, right? That is often a process where the system has to learn about the particular vocabulary that businesses use, right? A lot of the shorthand, a lot of acronyms and things like that, it's a learning process. We do have internal tools to handle that, right? So you can actually build, translation, quote unquote translations, if you will, right? That will help guide the interpretation of that natural language input to turn into a valid query, and then ultimately turn back into natural language that's generated to help kind of people understand the insight in their data. So some, that can certainly be a journey, in and of itself.
Yeah, I can imagine. We've got another question here from Carrie asking, what are the analytics behind, supporting the insight? Is it PCA and ML regression?
Yeah, I can answer that. So there's, depending on the question we are asking, we use a combination of machine learning and AI techniques. So let's say if you're talking about the natural language search interface, we use some deep neural network algorithms to train different kind of search queries and let the system learn from it. So when a new question comes up, it kind of figures out which one is a filter, which one is a group by, and stuff like that. So that's kind of on the search part. Now, when we look at the insights part, where we're talking about why things happening and how we can improve outcomes, it uses a combination of techniques. It uses combination of some statistical techniques. It uses classification algorithms like decision tree and random forest, to some of these algorithms where we are using to figure out more also predicting things in future. We also use some time series forecasting and regression algorithms. So I think the answer would be, it depends on the question. So if you have a question in search, it may use some kind of algorithms. And that's the beauty that we have. And that's kind of the secret sauce, that we took all these algorithms. These are amazing algorithms. We did not have to build a new algorithm. There's like a lot of algorithms available. But the question was, how do we use what algorithm for what question? So kind of doing that easy translation and mapping. And so have the analyst do that without really learning about all these complex techniques like PCA and all the other techniques.
Yeah, I think that's so beneficial, because I think there's currently a gap where we have the need to use all these techniques, but not a very clear understanding of how everything works behind it. So if your tool can help bridge that gap, that's very powerful. A question here from Praveen, and I think we maybe touched on this a little bit, but how about RLS? And is there a server for Tellius where we can store, maintain, and share the reports? Now, I know you mentioned you can download and get an SCV file, but if you want to respond to Praveen here.
Yeah, I'm not sure what RLS is, but yeah, there is from Tellius perspective, the way it's deployed is that we can do it on our cloud, or we can do it on the customer cloud. So there will be a server deployment where Tellius will bring the data in memory, and that's where we can actually share, maintain those reports. It could be insights, could be some of the other information. So that's available, and we will make that available to the end users with some history maintenance, like we'll maintain it for X days or months. Yeah.
Okay, and I googled RLS. It's a resource list server. So just FYI.
All right, I learn something every day.
When I don't know something, I typically assume the guests will know, and I just read it. And sometimes I have to Google. So now people know. Okay, so I wanted to ask, what are some of the main benefits that a business user will get from combining AI and BI? I know we touched on a couple already, but maybe if you want to provide a summary as we start to wrap up the session.
Yeah, I can take that. I think there's 4 areas. Number one is the analytics adoption. So we see like 6 to 8x better analytics adoption, meaning instead of 10 users using it, we want 70, 80 people to use. So that's number one. I think number two we see is faster speed of insights. I think we're typically seeing organizations reporting anywhere from 9 to 10x increase in the speed of insights it takes. And I think we have done some case studies, ROI analysis based on that. The third piece we see is the efficiency and the productivity gains. So we do see 70 to 80% efficiency productivity gains. And again, when businesses are trying to justify these ROI, they have to see what kind of productivity gain. And the last piece is uncovering those hidden opportunities. So we working with one of the pharmaceutical customer, they're able to uncover some revenue dollars, and actually in that case they're able to save some of the rebate dollars, which is actually a bottom line for them. So that's nothing to do with productivity, speed to insight. Those are real dollars they can save and justify that. So, and that's because they can find those things pretty quickly. So I think that's kind of the four areas we see so tremendous ROI and benefits to the businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just the speed to insights is already such a game changer, where you can literally ask a question of your data versus having to click and drag and think about, is this the right one? And how do I connect it to this data set? And I've been through dashboard hell, so I can relate to the issues that data analysts are facing. But at this point,
there was a question earlier, and I can't find it anymore. I think there was a question around alerting, or
oh yes, there was. Yes,
right?
I will. I'll pull that up. Actually, I wanted to ask that, and then things scrolled quickly. But yes, Adrian asked if the solution has exception management or alerting.
Yeah, so we've spent a lot of time talking about how anyone can ask questions, right, in natural language, and that's great. But eventually, at some point, what will happen is that you can set up the KPIs that you're interested in, right, in the system explicitly. Mm-hmm. And also, the system will also implicitly learn what's important to you based on your usage and your activity, and then automatically monitor these metrics. And it's not just alerting, right? It's not just saying, hey, if revenue dips past 10%, right, plus or minus 10%. It's really driven by the automated analysis and the machine learning algorithms, such that we'll identify patterns or anomalies that exceed or that are unexpected, and continually monitor this in a way to not only show you that, hey, performance has reached a point that we weren't expecting, but also automatically analyze why that's true, and then present you with some potential reasons why that's happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's great. I know some tools do provide some basic alerting where, like you said, revenue dips below 10%, send the manager an email or something like that. But I love that you guys go one step ahead of everyone else.
Right, because those things can be affected, by statistical variances, seasonality, kind of things like that, that we would, make sure that we account for.
Awesome. Well, Ajay, did you want to add something before we start our wrap up? I realize we're over the hour mark at this point.
Yeah.
I had so much fun with these.
No, I think I'm good. No, I think we can wrap up.
Okay, well, first of all, I want to thank both of you for joining the session. I personally love these sessions because I get to learn so much myself. But thanks to you guys, and thank you to the live audience that joined and asked some really insightful questions. It's always more interesting when we can participate with the live audience and engage and answer your questions. As we wrap up, I just want you, Ajay and Alvin, to tell people where can they go if they want to continue the conversation or learn more about the tool. Do they find you on LinkedIn or Twitter? Where do you guys work?
Absolutely. So we have a presence on LinkedIn, we're on Twitter, but a lot of the information is right on our website at tellius.com. So from there, you can learn more about us, learn more about the technology. You can start a free trial today, just within minutes. Just sign up, and we will have someone reach out and kind of understand what you're looking to do there. Or if you don't want to start a free trial, that's fine. You can request a demo, and then we will give you a personalized view about how we can help you in your specific situation that you're in.
Absolutely. Thank you. And Ajay?
No, I think I'll say thank you so much, Kate, for having us on the show. I think it was pretty engaging discussion. I love that when we have a lot of questions, a lot of discussions. I think it was pretty engaging discussion. But certainly the future of analytics is bright with AI coming in. I think we are at the early stages of this whole kind of evolution of analytics, with making it easy to access, as well as combining with some of that intelligence powered by machine learning and AI. So I think we can certainly see it taking effect in different organizations, and we'll certainly engage into discussions if someone has a use case or so. Love to talk and see how these kind of solutions can help those organizations.
Absolutely. Thank you both so much again for your time, and have a great day, everybody.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.